Today is Monday, December 9th. The Mets have brought back former prospect Alex Ramirez on a minor league deal, and that's all we're talking about today. Oh yeah, they also signed Juan Soto for $765 million. Let's talk about it.
Jerry and Charlie, Shea Station. Jerry and Charlie, riding through the airwaves, bringing you the heat. Come on, pull your bands, now get up out your seat. They're bringing you all things Mets, they're bringing you all things Mets. They're bringing you all things Mets, now you're listening to Shea Station.
Welcome back to the Shea Station podcast, and I hope you're having a terrific morning. I hope coffee tastes a little bit better. I hope the eggs that you cooked for breakfast tasted even better than they usually do. I hope your commute to work was shorter than it usually is. I hope the cold weather felt nice instead of so brisk today, because Juan Soto chose the New York Mets last night. He chose them on a 15-year, $765 million deal with bonuses and incentives that leaves it closer to an $800 million deal, the most lucrative contract in sports history. I'm one of your co-hosts, Jack, a.k.a. Jolly. Joining me for the first time in a couple weeks is my good friend, Jerry Blevins. Jerry, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm happy to be here, Jolly. This is a jolly day.
It sure is.
It truly is. I actually didn't think that Juan Soto was going to sign last night. I was like, oh, okay, speculation. But it's really smart. It's good for baseball, first of all, to get the ball rolling. Now everybody else can fill in the gaps. Teams can pivot. But the Mets do not have to pivot. Now they are all in as they always have been. But look, this brings them into play for other free agents because the biggest piece fell. And they still have flexibility. So this is huge, man. This is the biggest deal in sports franchise history. To me, the no deferred money is the Steve Cohen effect.
Yep.
That is huge. I guarantee you that played a big factor in him coming here. And the fact that I'm excited for his conference, whenever it comes down the pike, because he chose the Mets. The Yankees were in the ballpark.
$5 million short. That's it.
But an extra year, so it brings the AAV down. But is that bad or better? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he chose the Mets, and I'm sure in your office full of Yankee fans, founded by Yankee fans, you're standing a little taller today. And I imagine if it weren't overcast and rainy outside, it's definitely like that inside, except for over yourself today.
Yeah, there's a select few of us that are having a terrific day. I'm keeping it humble and respectful. It's been civil out there, but deep down, I think there's a little bit of a dark cloud hanging over everybody, as you said. We're going to get into the Mets payroll and what comes next and all that stuff, but for now, you're absolutely right. Let's sit in this Juan Soto signing for just a second. No deferred money. A $75 million signing bonus. $765 million is your end total. You can say that he's overpaid. You can say that in 5 years he might be a DH, but it doesn't matter, man, because Juan Soto chose the New York Mets. He's one of the best players in baseball. He's going to win an MVP award at some point in his career. He has the same trajectory as Ted Williams did back in his heyday. This is a historic signing, not only because it is a star player choosing the New York Mets over the crosstown rival. It's more so Steve Cohen announcing his presence formally after close to 5 years of owning the team. We've seen the Max Scherzer signing be a big deal. We've seen the Carlos Correa fiasco. We've seen us be big players in the Yamamoto sweepstakes, but we've never quite stuck the landing in any of those in terms of how the player performed, where they ended up going, all that stuff. This is really, to me, the announcing of a presence, not only in New York, but in Major League Baseball, that Steve Cohen, I think, utilized the 2024 season perfectly. I think he saw the forward momentum of this franchise. I think the Mets making the playoffs and going on that run is as important to this as it's ever been. And it just goes to show that, this ownership regime truly is different. I want to dedicate this podcast to some players, Jerry, if you'll indulge me for just a second. I want to dedicate this podcast to Colin Cowgill, who won the center field starting job in 2014 for the New York Mets. I want to dedicate this podcast to Michael Kadire, who was 38 years old when he signed with the New York Mets and was the marquee piece in a pennant run year. I want to dedicate this podcast to all of the dumpster diving that the Wilpon ownership did in their tenure as Mets ownership. Jerry, I'm not counting you in that. They traded for you and you were excellent here. That does not count. Don't point to yourself. The point is, Mets fans have been through a ton. They've been through the Frank Franciscos, the Sean Markhams, the Jason Bays. They've been through a lot of cheap signings and deals that just didn't follow through. And now they are witnessing the birth of a new era in the Mets franchise history. Our kids, our grandkids are going to grow up as Mets fans with a completely different view on this team than the one that I grew up with. And that alone, outside of Juan Soto and all the money spent, is very special to me. So outside of all that, just very, very happy this morning. I'm with you. I really didn't think that he was going to come here. In my brain, there was a set price point that I think Juan Soto wanted to achieve. And then after that, he would just choose where he wanted to go. In my mind, it was like 701, just breaching the Ohtani number. Instead, he went to the highest bidder. He went to the future that he saw the brightest, as in the words of Jeff Passan. And Juan Soto, for the next 15 years, because I don't think he's going to opt out after 5 years, he's going to be a New York Met. Unbelievable.
Unbelievable. Yeah, I mean, you named a lot of names. I'm going to. This is for me. This is a Steve Cohen signing.
Yeah.
Steve and Alex, to be honest, they are. It started with the immediate trade for Francisco Lindor,
yes.
Which, he truly came into his own last season. He's been excellent for a couple of years. This was an MVP level season, one that I'll still make the argument that he might have. I think I would have voted for him. Didn't win, landslide victory for Shohei, but this started there. And then from that point, to me, the biggest sign was the Max Scherzer signing.
Yeah.
It didn't work, but he made a play to try and win in the short term without sacrificing the long term. And that was the key for me. Then he doubled down with Justin Verlander.
Yeah.
And those two, it was an experiment of high AAV for an aging superstars, future Hall of Famers, and win in the short term. No prospects needed, didn't have to forfeit any bit of their future. They weren't leveraged at all against signings, but also the awareness to understand that there are a few diamonds in the rough. The Yamamoto signing at his young age, to be able to lock a guy like that up for the future. They made a play for him in a year where they were calling it a gap year.
Yeah.
So they were willing to pay him for this past season, knowing that they probably weren't going to be able to contend or at least be on a World Series championship level, because they saw the big picture. Yamamoto ultimately, I think, wanted to be a Dodger. I think all of that going in, he chose that team. But this is like a Bryce Harper.
Yeah.
Like, this is truly, you're getting a guy at 26 years old, future Hall of Famer. This is a rare chance to go all in on a guy who hasn't even reached his prime yet.
And you know what, Jerry? Well, you brought up Lindor's contract and you brought up Bryce's contract. When those contracts were signed, everyone was saying the same thing. What an overpay. How can you give one guy this much money? No one is saying that now. So you know what? All the commentary about Juan Soto getting an overpayment right now, let's see in 4 to 5 years. Let's just see.
It's true. I mean, this is the record for forever.
Yes.
I don't think, again, I could be wrong, but the combination of factors that played into him being available at his age, being as good as he is now, we're not going to see that again. Ronald Acuna could have done it, but he signed an early deal and then he got hurt a couple of times. So he's already outkicked that coverage, but that's the thing. They saw an opportunity to get a guy. You don't get a guy this good, this young, ever. Like, it doesn't come around. And so they targeted that, understanding that they can have this and other pieces to go along with it. But this is the backbone. They're
Yes.
going to have Lindor and Juan Soto in their lineup at 1-2 probably for the next 10 years.
Yes.
And that is magical.
What a
is
sentence
beautiful
that
thing.
is. Oh my, I feel like I still haven't fully processed that for the next decade, that's your 1-2 at the top of your lineup. That's spectacular. Two players that might be the best in franchise history at the end of it. You know what I mean? Like, maybe better than any other position players that have played here.
Yeah, that's what they're hoping for. That's what they're expecting. I think that's the word. They don't hope for it. That's what they expect. That's when you pay a guy like that this amount of money, this is what you expect. You expect him to go out and put up a 7+ WAR year every year. So, if he turns out to be a DH, I think they've baked that into it. This guy, his bat is so good that you don't need him to stand in the outfield. He's not that great of an outfielder. He's okay, but he's definitely not the greatest outfielder.
I mean,
but that is not what you want. You don't care about that.
If you're a WAR guy, his value goes up in every season he's ever played if he just DHs, which I think people are not processing. They're like, you paid this much money for the DH. No, you paid this much money for the best hitter in baseball who's going to get better. He's going to turn 26. Do you know how many baseball players get better in their late 20s? Major League Baseball players. Almost all of them. Like, I feel like people are not grasping the fact that it's exactly what you said. This is an unprecedented situation. A player this talented, this young, hitting free agency. Do yourself a favor at home if you're having trouble, being happy about this signing, which some people are out there, which I can't believe it. Go look at the next 2, 3, 4 free agent classes. They pale in comparison to the last two, which is why the Mets went hard on guys like Ohtani and Yamamoto and now Juan Soto, because I think they recognized in this next window of 3 to 4 years, there's not that backbone player. There are good players. Vladimir Guerrero is going to be a free agent. Kyle Tucker will be a free agent soon. Jordan Alvarez in a couple years, but not Juan Soto. Like, there's nothing like that. So when you look at the number and you balk at the number and think, how could one guy be worth $800 million? It's more than just about the production you're going to get year in and year out. It's the fact that you're going to have that production for potentially a decade, because a decade from now, he'll be 34. He could still be a very productive player at that age. So in my mind, it was worth every penny, which is also why I thought it wasn't going to happen, because these types of things don't happen for the Mets. They never have. This is really the first example of its kind. And the craziest part is, and we'll get into it, the Mets still have so much money they can spend for next year's team. They are not out on anyone. Go ahead.
Talk about the payroll numbers already from last year to this year.
Dude, I couldn't believe
including Juan Soto's money.
So the 2024 payroll with the Max Scherzers and the Justin Verlanders and Jeff McNeil's contract and Lindor, all that stuff attached to it, was a lot. It was $315 million when it was adjusted payroll. And that was, I think, top 2 in MLB, maybe even top 1. As of right now, when you add Juan Soto's $51 million to their current payroll, it currently sits at 205. So even if the Mets just want to match what the number was last year, they still have $110 million that they can spend in free agency, which means for this year, which means no one is off the table, which is a scary thought for anyone who's not a Mets fan, But that means Burns is in play, Fried is in play. Even some of the other lucrative position players are probably still in play for this team. And, you look up and down the current Mets roster, there's a lot of work to do with this team. They're not clear-cut division favorites by any means, in my opinion, right now. But to think that they're done is just ludicrous. They have a lot more to do, and I'm excited for it.
I agree. And that's the key for me. They have more to do. I think, one huge starter is still out there, at least. I think they'll sign probably two. You saw that Severino and Manaea both left, which is a little bit of a heartbreak, but that's baseball. That's what it is. The free agency market, though, I think that's the key. I think Burns is on the table, Max Fried is on the table, but to me, I think the new gem of that would be Roki Sasaki.
Yeah, who the Mets are rumored to be heavily in play for.
And I think with Juan Soto signing, I think the New York Mets become a target. Like now I can see it a lot better that Sasaki comes here because he's still under team control.
Yes.
Like the way it is, since he didn't wait another year, he's got to do it the old-fashioned way, and he's under team control for a while. So he's not going to get, a Yamamoto-sized contract. It's impossible the way the CBA is set up. So he's going to want to go to contender. He's also want to, I think, complete speculation, but he's also going to want to go to a city where he can stand out off the field and make supplemental income off the field with appearances. I think he would be crowded in LA, and that leaves, the Cubs would do great. Chicago has a chance. But outside of that, I think it's the two New York teams that are truly on the market, and the Mets are looking like a shining star, a beacon. Come land that plane, Roki. So that's, speculation, but
no, dude, that's a great point. Cause even outside of Juan Soto's talents, he's made the Mets a landmark destination now, which is things we've said before about Francisco Lindor, but this is it's a different level. It's a guy that's competed under the bright lights at age 18. He won a World Series in his first full season. He's been basically the best player on any team that he's ever been a part of, aside from last year, considering Judge's regular season. Guys are going to want to play alongside Juan Soto because I think they recognize what that means. Like being on the same roster as a guy that's done it all at age 25. And with Roki, I did a Roki piece a couple weeks ago. My eventual prediction landed with the San Diego Padres, but it was for a lot of the reasons that you just listed. I think that, he would be the third most notable Japanese star on his own team, whereas anywhere else, any other MLB team, he would be number one. And then you're going to need these endorsement deals and off-site stuff because he's going to be earning the major league minimum in his first year. And for a while, he's going to be going through arbitration and all that stuff. He's not getting Yamamoto money. Had he waited another year, which is personally what I thought he was going to do, he would have got that big money. He probably would have got more than Yamamoto, if I'm being honest. Instead, this is an unbelievable opportunity for so many different MLB teams who all they have to do is just offer their max bonus pool signing money in their international budget, which is, I think, caps out at $5 million for most teams. If the Mets get that done, that's another generational 24, 25-year-old that you're adding to this roster for the foreseeable future. Another player that you're adding at minimum for 5 years for this window that you're building.
Yeah. Again, I've seen a lot of hyperbolic tweets about the Mets have arrived, and it's true in a sense that this is now proven that the Mets are a destination, are planning to be a contender. They've got an amazing manager that they figured out with Carlos Mendoza. Year one was an absolute spectacular showing on what impact a manager can have on a team. They had their superstar shortstop, perennial, MVP candidate in my sense, blossom into a true leader. And they showed grit. It's a fun franchise. These guys are doing everything they can to win. They are a destination. So it's pretty spectacular to be a Mets fan now. and to also cover this team, like it, it's changed the narrative of who the Mets are from, a little bit of a laughing stock of, you know, that's about as Metsy as it getsy, as
Oh
our
yeah.
friend Jake would say. And it
Hmm.
has a different meaning now. And I think that's the key. They're going to have to go out and they're still going to have to add, but they're going to be, barring injury, they're going to be some contenders for the foreseeable future on every platform here.
And Jerry, we talked about it a little bit before the show. Everything happens for a reason. Between losing out on Yamamoto, between the Carlos Correa deal that never was, $325 million there, everything happens for a reason, because if either one of those deals goes through, there's a world where the Mets have to cap out what they spend on Juan Soto and end up losing this bidding war, which, by the way, by all accounts from beat reporters like Andy Martino, who has earned, a lot of level of trust from me, it was looking all Yankees yesterday up until the last second, which, what I love? A lot of people said this isn't an original thought. The Grimace Mets carried their comeback mentality into the offseason, which I really love. Come back at the last second, get the deal done. I love that energy. So yeah, it's all surreal. It's all unbelievable. And I guess if you're okay with it, I guess we should talk about just the current state of the roster now. Now that the Juan
Yeah.
Soto signing is done, it's locked in. He's a part of your team for the next 15 years. Now, what do the Mets do? So here's what's locked in. I guess we'll start with that. What's locked in my opinion, is the 1 through 4 in this lineup, which is Francisco Lindor, Juan Soto, Mark Vientos hitting third, Brandon Nimmo hitting fourth. That, in my mind, is, you can book that. That's going to be opening day. Stuff beneath that, the Starling Marte contract, the Jeff McNeil contract. Is Brett Beatty going to get another look at third base? What does Francisco Alvarez look like? There's still a lot of question marks with this lineup. And my first question to you, what is your stance on Pete Alonso? The Mets have money to spend. Pete Alonso's sweepstakes haven't really gotten going yet because he's a Boris guy, and Boris had a lot of deals to negotiate. I think Pete Alonso has now become the belle of the ball, in my opinion, alongside Alex Bregman, especially with Willy Adames off the board going to the Giants. Do you think it's feasible that the Mets bring back the polar bear to play first base?
I think it's possible. I would never say never, but I do truly think that his market would have to flounder
Mm,
for him to come back. I think I envision him signing elsewhere, and he is the belle of the ball now. He is the target. Um, that's one thing that I think, is a little bit sad. Like I was super pumped for Juan Soto signing. It's nothing, but then I thought about, I did think about Pete Alonso, because he's been a Met and he's been a part of some tough teams and he's been there. I can see the polar bear. I see the polar bear signing elsewhere, but I'm not ruling it out, because if his market, and this is the game, this is the difference between just blind money
mm,
and intelligent money on where to spend. The fact that when Craig Counsell was, a target, very likely Cohen and they got the sense that he didn't want to be in New York. And so they didn't play his game. They didn't try to outbid. They were just like, you know what? You don't want to be here. We don't need you in that sense. We'll figure it out elsewhere. I trust my value, my ability to find talent, and they moved on. And so I think that's the gamble that they took is, we feel your market is this, Pete Alonso. We're not going to give you a huge over the top payday for you to come back, which is what it seemed like it would have needed to be
yeah.
for him to sign early. We would love to have you back. We have a price we think this is fair market value. We're not going to overpay. So I wish you the best of luck. I hope you get everything that you can. No ill will. We'll be here because we value you. If you don't find what you're looking for in free agency, we would welcome you back with open arms. That's where I think they are. But I can see another team. This feels like a swap. This feels like Juan Soto to the
Whoa.
Mets and Pete Alonso to the Yankees.
I
This
don't
is
know
what
if
it
they can
feels like
do
to
that.
me.
It would be a great fit, but I don't know if they can do that to their fans.
Who? The Yankees?
I don't think Hal Steinbrenner can turn around and sign Pete Alonso. I think
Why?
there would be riots in the streets because that would
Why?
become because all right, here's where I'm at with all this because in at the end of the day, not I'm not saying this is bigger than Juan Soto, but at the end of the day, when it was Steve and Hal in a bidding war going back and forth, it felt like a New York pissing contest. It felt like who is the real king of New York because no other team. I mean, you saw the Red Sox offer; it was 700, but about half of that was deferred. The LA tapped out at 600. The Blue Jays, we don't even know where they ended up. It was a New York bidding war. So for Hal to lose that and then turn around and say, okay, we're going to bring in one of their guys now. We're going to play their game and try and get back at them. But and all love to Pete with a far lesser player. I just think it would be such a slap in the face, and I don't think Yankees fans would be happy about it. But I also don't know what they do now. A lot of the, I talked to Jake, I talked to Joe's. When I asked them what they want the Yankees to do now, it was a lot of just kind of throwing up, shrugging your shoulders and all that stuff. But
Yeah, so here's
yeah,
the thing.
go ahead.
This if the Mets didn't sign Juan Soto, it's not a shrug of the shoulders because there's a plan B.
Yes.
I feel like the Yankees have a plan B. Cashman is always understanding of what's going on. I think Pete Alonso fits the Yankees' needs by a significant margin. I think this is their plan B, is to sign him, to sign Teoscar Hernandez,
Mm,
to kind of supplement, but also deepen their lineup. Their lineup needed more depth. I mean, they were 1-2, and that's it. And I think if here's another reason why I think he signed with the Mets and not just because he wanted to be a Met, because I think the Yankees would have been hamstrung a bit with flexibility.
oh, yeah.
If they sign him, I don't think they can sign anybody else. I just don't think they can do that. But the Mets can. The Mets are built to also add to this not just rotation, but to add to the lineup where they need to. They're not afraid. They have the flexibility now. I think that's the difference. I think ultimately the Yankees will be better served if they get Pete Alonso and then two other pieces because they just simply can't facilitate a true team if they put him on their lineup. And I think they're going for it.
Yeah, a lot of what I was talking about with Yankee fans here last week was that, this Juan Soto signing, if they did get it done, that all that does is get you back to square one. Like your offseason begins when you get Juan Soto. It doesn't really include getting Juan Soto because to get back to the World Series, it's got to be Soto plus. And you're right, they would have been very hamstrung. They would have had to do a lot of maneuvering in terms of, trading probably Marcus Stroman and Nestor Cortez just to get money to be able to spend on the team. The thing I'll say about Pete Alonso is I am in your boat, unfortunately. I was hoping to play contrarian there, but it feels like we're kind of in the same headspace about it. For those who don't know, Pete Alonso last year turned down a 7-year, $158 million extension with the Mets. The speculation is that I think Pete wanted to become the highest paid first baseman outside of Bryce Harper, who transitioned to first base after being an outfielder, because Matt Olson signed for 168, Freddie Freeman signed for 162, which is unbelievable, by the way, that he signed for that little. I think Pete wants to get to that 170 mark, and before, I didn't think that was feasible for him, especially considering Scott Boris's offseason last year. Now, Scott Boris has fully reemerged as top dog. Like that was just a fluke, I guess. And I do think Pete is going to end up getting that money from someone because Juan Soto raised the bar for every position player. Like every position player, I think is going to get more than everyone thought they would. When Alex Bregman came out and said, I want to get 200 mil, I scoffed. I think that's happening now. I you had a little of a reaction there. Really?
I'm not sure.
I don't know.
I mean, again, Juan Soto's a different
Yes.
animal. He is a different beast. He's 26 years old. Like you can't the reason why he got that big number is because he's so young and he can do this for so long. This isn't Albert Pujols signing, a decade-long deal and the last half of it you're just, a below average hitter. This isn't that kind of deal. He's significant. So I don't think like Bregman. How old's Bregman? 31?
Let's check. Actually, that's a good question.
He doesn't.
Yeah, 31.
Yeah, I don't think this raises his money. I don't. I think the market is still the market. I don't think he can say, well, Juan Soto got this. He's like, yeah, no offense, bud, but you're not Juan Soto. Yeah, that so I think the market stays the same for Pete Alonso.
Mm,
I think there might be some teams like the Yankees that need him a little bit more, so they might stretch it to an extra year, but they're not going to give him $50 million a year
yeah.
or
No,
even
I agree
40.
with that. Yeah, but like
So,
the interesting thing with Pete is that if the Mets can work out a way to do one of those signature Cohen deals, which is short years, high AAV, I think everyone's happy because we just mentioned it before. The Mets still have $110 million, $110 million that they can spend on this next year's team. If you give Pete a third of that, but instead of giving him, 6, 7 years, he takes 3 to 4, that fits the Mets window. I mean, you're going to get good years out of Pete Alonso through and through, who just turned 30. He gets to stay with this team, play alongside
break
Juan
the home
Soto,
run records.
break the home run record. In my mind, do those things matter to Pete more so than resetting the first base market? I don't know. That's a Pete Alonso question, but I think that's probably where the Mets are at. I think they would be naive to completely just push him aside and not even,
won't do
come
that.
to the table. Yeah. But I don't know if Pete Alonso accepts that kind of deal, the higher AAV for shorter term.
Yeah, I also don't know where he is on being taken a significant step back in the pecking order
Oh, yeah.
of things. You know what I mean? So I I don't think this means more money for Bregman. I don't think this means more money for Pete Alonso. I think he's just a unicorn. I think Juan Soto is a different animal, and they're like, all right, well, this is still you. This guy's just he was creating a market for himself. Like
Right.
this doesn't compare to Otani because Otani plays two positions.
Yes.
He's a Japanese-born superstar marketer. Like this guy is the greatest baseball player to ever live. This guy is a 26-year-old greatest hitter on the planet and will probably be that for the next 10 years.
It's unbelievable.
So they're different. They're outliers by significant margins. So
the more and more I look at the Mets roster resource page on Fangraphs, the more and more I think that Brett Beatty's going to get another shot at third base because of the amount that you've brought into the lineup feels like you just bought insurance to give your young guys a shot, which we know David Stearns likes to do. He has been very favorable towards prospects throughout his entire tenure as GM of both this team and the Brewers. And Brett Beatty's going to turn 25. I got to imagine the Mets like the idea of Mark Vientos playing first base instead.
Say that one more time.
What?
How old is Brett Beatty?
He's 25.
How old is Juan Soto?
26. It's unbelievable. It's crazy.
That's what we're talking about. That's the difference.
Yes. To put all Mark Vientos and Juan Soto are 13 months apart. And we are over the moon about how Mark Vientos performed in 3/4 of a season last year. Juan Soto's been doing it for 7 years.
He's got to prove that he can do it in a different season.
Yes.
It's a different animal. He's got to go out and reestablish himself. Juan Soto's done it for 3 different teams already.
It's ludicrous.
Yeah.
There's no dollar amount that I truly think would have been too much. Maybe $1 billion. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean this guy it's a different. You won't see this market. You won't see a guy like this come on the market.
No. I had a buddy of mine text me and say, okay, who's going to be the first guy to get $1 billion? And I said, I don't think there is going to be. I mean, maybe it could have been Bobby Witt Jr. if he waited, but no. I mean, he's signed for the next 13 years or whatever it is.
I
with
think that's
opt-outs.
what's going to keep happening. Bobby Witt, like you can't turn that money down.
No.
You know what I mean?
Of course not. You're 22 years old, wherever he is. Like you have
Gunnar
to.
Henderson,
it's life-changing money. Gunnar might be the guy because I don't think Gunnar has that long-term extension yet. Which Orioles? What
Jackson
are you doing?
Holiday, if he decides if he's on the everyday roster to start the year,
Yeah.
and becomes what Juan Soto did, maybe, because they're what, how old is he's
I mean,
20?
he's 19,
19?
20.
So that's how old Juan Soto was when he got called up.
Oh, he's
19 years old.
21 now. He was 20 last year.
So he's old. So he's not even, he can't do it. So
People don't come up at 18 years old and be good at Major League Baseball, besides Bryce Harper and Juan Soto.
great.
And A-Rod.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yep.
those are the three I can think of, and that's it. So the Mets have done themselves a great service by bringing this guy in. So we talked about the lineup. I think when we talk about the $110 million that is free for the Mets to still spend, it's going to be going towards this rotation, which as of right now is listed as Kodai Senga at the 1, Frankie Montas as your 2, David Peterson 3rd, Clay Holmes, the reliever, 4th, and Paul Blackburn, who we saw 2 starts out of last year.
Is Clay Holmes going to be, is it already a fact that he's,
Yeah, we never really did this.
Yeah.
The Mets, per Jeff Passan and a lot of reputable reporters, plan to exercise Clay Holmes as a starter. We'll see how much that sticks. What I said in my reaction to the signing was I think the Mets bought themselves an expensive safety net where if Clay Holmes doesn't work out as a starter, you have yourself a proven setup guy that can be a good bridge to Edwin Diaz with good infield defense behind him. If he does work as a starter, you get great value out of that. You know, $13 million is the same as what Luis Severino signed for last year. But he's a project, much like Frankie Montas is a project, much like even Paul Blackburn can be considered a project. Kodai Senga, there's uncertainty there. He threw 6 innings last year, essentially. The only sure thing is David Peterson, who's coming off his first truly great year as a New York Met. So there's a lot of work to do with the starting rotation, but a lot of money to spend on a lot of great pitchers that are available.
Yeah, they need bullpen and they need top end starting pitching. So there's still some needs.
So who's the guy you'd like to see the Mets go after? Because right now, with Blake Snell signing with the Los Angeles Dodgers, it's become a 2-horse race at the top for big-time starting pitching money, which is Corbin Burns and Max Fried, which, by the way, everyone who was just in on the Juan Soto sweepstakes is now transitioning to the starting pitcher sweepstakes. So it's going to be the same level of competition, obviously for less money, but the Mets are facing multiple bidding wars still ahead of them outside of this Juan Soto decision.
Yeah, to me, it's Fried or Burns. Those are the 2 / top picks. You got to get one of them. They're the cream of the crop. I think again, this is where I believe in David Stearns. He understands the market.
Yeah,
he understands what they're capable of doing, and he's willing to offer them top market, not overpay, and figure it out. So I think those are the 2 needs. And then you need, like, does this make Jose Butto a reliever?
I think so. I mean, he's going to be an option for the rotation. And it was a couple pods ago, but as soon as you brought that up, I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense because it was working in the rotation. And then the Mets got reinforcements. They didn't have to use him there. And he ended up becoming a great long reliever for them. But yeah, in my mind, he's still very much a starting pitching option. More so, I view him more of an option than like Tyler McGill and even Paul Blackburn, if I'm being honest. I like Butto's upside a lot more than both those guys.
Oh, for sure.
But
Blackburn's a solid big league starter, but he's a 5.
Blackburn, in my mind, is going to take
awesome.
over that Joey Lucchesi role where he's going to be the reserve guy for when you when you need
guy
him.
out of the pen and then step up and make that. Yeah, I'm for that. They've got some wiggle room. Never have too much starting pitching depth. I think they want a 6-man rotation anyway.
I think they do. Yeah, I think you're right.
So and then having a guy that can come in and take over a spot during the rotation and let a guy get out, all those types of things. All I know is that Juan Soto, there was a lot of narrative of, will they be a better team if they don't sign Juan Soto? Like, no team is better if they miss out on the best player. You know what I mean? That doesn't make any sense to me. In the Yankees are not as good of a team. I mean, they just went to the World Series on the back of Judge and Soto. Now that's missing. They have to fill some gaps.
Jerry,
they might be able to do it more creatively, but the Mets can also play all the guys that the Yankees are now in contention for. So are the Mets.
Yeah,
and they can offer them the same piece. So
let me ask you this, Jerry. When do you think the last time the Yankees beat a non-AL Central team in the playoffs was? How long do you think it's been?
That doesn't resonate in my memory at all.
2012. It's been that long. They have so much work to do to get over the hump. And do yourself a favor if you want to put yourself in the mind of a Yankee fan right now, if you're into that kind of thing. Jimmy and Jake did a really interesting off-season plans episode if they don't get Juan Soto. This was a week and a half ago. And they came up with like a lot of creative solutions and stuff, but you could tell in their tone that they weren't super into any of it because in their mind, it was still Juan Soto was plan A. And I think Mets fans, including myself, are now coming around to the realization that this team would have been so much worse off if they didn't sign Juan Soto. I mean, you can make all sorts of pivots. You can get Burns and Fried and one of those marquee position players and bring Pete back, but none of it opens a window quite like having Juan Soto on your roster, which is the more and more I process this signing, the more and more excited I'm getting, not only for this year, but just for the next 5 years of Mets baseball.
This is a really smart move for the franchise and for Juan Soto. Understanding this is a long game. He's got a long career ahead of him. 5 years after the opt-out, I'm not sure other teams were willing to be like, maybe. But the Mets were the best team that has the ability to still shuffle the deck every once in a while inside of that big contract. So it's pretty special, man. I'm so excited to see him in the blue and orange. He makes this team so much better.
I mean, the best, in my brain, tell me if I'm crazy, the best case scenario, which I cannot possibly foresee this happening, is Juan Soto exercising that opt-out after 5 years. Because that means the 5 years went incredibly well because he thinks he can get more than $51 million a year, which is insane. And then you got Juan Soto until he turned 30. So when that detail of the deal came out, I was like,
take it.
I don't think he's going to opt out. There's no way that he can make more.
They have to give him $4 million more a year after that.
So he's going to make 55. That's insane.
Yeah, I think that's the contract. The Mets he can opt out, and the Mets can say, no, you can't, and put it up to 55.
That's crazy. I mean, I love it. The way that the Mets were still able to like semi-protect themselves in the deal too for this amazing player is just crazy. Think about where this team was 5 years ago, Jerry. I tweeted this last night. It's one of my favorite tweets ever. It is the Brody Van Wagenen tweet heading into the 2020 season where he tweeted jersey swaps of the 4 marquee Mets signings, which were Rick Porcello, who retired after that season, Dylan Betances, who never took the mound, Jake Marisnick, who I think was like our 4th outfielder, and then Michael Wacha, who became great after he left the New York Mets. That was what I used to have to hype myself up for. Be like, okay, this is our year. A lot of things can go right. Let's see.
Now it's Juan Soto this year.
Let's have fun. Let's just see, Now it's Juan Soto. And they're still in play for everyone.
This is, they talked about that 5-year window. This is the 5-year window. He didn't win a championship in that 5 years, but what he did was they built a perennial contender. And that is the ultimate dream of anybody that's truly understanding. It's not World Series or bust. This is a chance to win a World Series every year. And that's what you have here now. This is what it looks like. So they still have work to do.
Yes.
But I have no doubt that the work will get done. That's the beauty. Nothing's ever a guarantee as far as victories because you still got to play the game. There's still things that happen in baseball in general. It's a sport that we love to watch because you don't know what's going to happen. But any Mets fan has to be nothing but elated at this moment because they didn't have to pay him $100 million more than anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have to sacrifice any bit of their future for it. And he chose this team based off of all the same factors that the teams were choosing to go elsewhere before. It's different. It's different.
And outside of all that, the stability that I feel with this team right now is something I haven't felt in 10 years. Since they went to the World Series in 2015, where they announced that the entire coaching staff is coming back, and David Stearns didn't hire a GM because he's the guy in charge, and the feeling that I have that this team is going to look like this for their at least the next 3 to 5 years is really special, because there's what have we been dealing with throughout the entirety of the Shea Station podcast, year in and year out, the amount of turnover, the amount of new faces. It's exciting, sure, but you know what's more exciting? A championship core that's there year in and year out. And that is what you have now between Lindor, Vientos, and Soto and everything else that comes with that. You have yourself a core, a young core. It's really cool.
Very cool. Now the goal is to start developing, these young studs that come up. A Mark Vientos. You want to develop that pitching where a guy can step up and become an ace at, for the first 6 years of his career, and then go out and get a major contract. But that's what they've been building behind the scenes, not just on the major league field. They've been doing all the things, investing deeply in all of it. So this feels like you've built a franchise for the future. The Dodgers creating, you're in the Atlanta Braves creating all this stuff. Yeah, it's special, man. I'm enjoying it. 2024 season was special because it kind of was unexpected.
Oh, yeah.
Still had high hopes coming into spring training, but there had a lot of things needed to go right. And it became a magical season based off of how bad they were, how dysfunctional they were or seemed, and then they put it together and they became one of my favorite teams I've ever covered or been a part of, in quotes, because they bought into each other. And I think that's what's going to happen every single year. That's what, I've always admired about, as a player, seeing what the Dodgers are doing. These guys they're better because they're Dodgers. They turn good players into great players and average players into really good players because they prepare them the right way and they buy into the style of baseball that they want to play. This feels like what the Mets are doing. They're creating a team where they can find a guy like Frankie Montas and be like, this is how you're going to be great this year. And Sean Manaea and Luis Severino. They can turn guys, even if it's not the marquee name, they can get the best out of the players on the fringes and solidify a roster based on depth and what they bring to the table as an organization.
It's becoming a destination not only for elite players, but also for players that are looking to get the most out of themselves. Like the way that we've become almost like a pitching like last year's great evidence that the Mets have become a landmark place. If you're a starting pitcher and you're not satisfied with your value, you're not satisfied with what you're hearing, you go to the Mets, you get the best out of yourself, and you leave much richer than you were before. Luis Severino is a great case example of that. Walked in after saying, I'm the worst pitcher in baseball, left with $67 million. Like, that is a testament to exactly everything that you just said about how the Mets are changing the way that they're viewed, the way that they run their organization. And the prize for having that magical season, for having that 22-33 turnaround is Juan Soto. Because I don't know if we still get chosen if last year stays a disaster and the Mets sell at the deadline. Like, I don't know that he would still come there.
I don't think so. I don't think it happens either. But, that's it happens. So you can't take it away and speculate. But this is the thing for me. Like, who are some of the names that are like a Teoscar Hernandez? Who are other Teoscar Hernandez caliber bats?
Anthony Santander.
If you're Anthony Santander and you get to say, I get to be protected by Juan Soto, Francisco Lindor, Brandon Nimmo, Mark Vientos, like I'm going to fit somewhere inside of that. I mean, you're going to be better. So you can up your value too. You're not going to be stuck on an island and have to perform and have to be their marquee, cleanup hitter and be the reason why they fail or succeed. You can be a great piece, a great asset, and make yourself the fourth best hitter on the team, the fifth, the sixth best hitter on the team, and have your best year of your career. Like this is what it becomes, a destination for the second level guys too.
Dude, it's your Dodgers point. Like, if Tommy Edman waited until he hit free agency, I think he probably could have got more than the extension he took. Blake Snell, I think, definitely could have got $200 million, but he wanted to go to the Dodgers because they make players better. As soon as you take on that moniker and mantra for your organization, it becomes an ideal destination. And
they have Blake Snell and Tyler Glasnow are the two. They're the same player, just one's right-handed, one's left-handed. He saw the success and what they were doing with that, and he jumped on board. So I can see the exact same thing happening for the New York Mets when they have guys. Like they're a destination for every type of free agent. They want to come, they want to win, they want to get paid, they want to be a part of a well-structured, well-coached, great fan base, great ballpark, top, like they have everything as an A+ as far as organizationally.
I can't wait to pay $100 for parking. I can't wait to pay $50 for my tall boy Stella Artois. I can't wait to pay $30 for my hot dog with mustard because Juan Soto is a New York Met. I think that's all I got.
It's a beautiful day, my friend.
It's a beautiful day.
I hope we get another pop-up here today and we have to have an emergency pod for
how sweet of it. I mean, winter meetings start today, which is ridiculous.
Talk about leverage when you're the New York Mets right now.
Dude. Bell the ball,
baby. It puts you
baby.
in a better bargaining position. It puts, like, you know what you have on the table. There's no more. And again, thank you, Juan Soto, for figuring out that you don't need to wait until the end to get the most value.
Yes.
You're going to make your team have a chance to add just legitimately beautiful across the board. Baseball is the shining beacon in sports right now until for the foreseeable future. I do get to watch my Bengals probably put up 60 points and lose tonight.
Nice.
That's what they've been doing. But my brain will be all about baseball. So
be thinking about spring training, baby. Oh boy. Yeah. All right. I think that's all the gushing we can do for this hour. Mets fans, enjoy today, enjoy tomorrow, enjoy all the days until spring training.
Be jolly in the jolly time season.
LFGM. We'll see you guys next time.
Peace.
Cherry and